To you. Leviticus chapter 9 this evening. Sunday nights we make our way through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And as we come to this place in the book of Leviticus, the theme of which is a theme of holiness, God had spoken to the children of Israel upon coming out of the land of Egypt, related to a whole kind of system for worshiping Him. A tabernacle that was to be built, an entire furnishings that were to fill that tabernacle, all of which speaks of Christ. And then a sacrificial system that He was establishing as a part of this shadow of Jesus who was to come. But in order for these sacrifices to be offered on behalf of the people and all, it required a priesthood. And again, this priesthood, it's all about Jesus. It's all a shadow or a type or picture of Him in the Old Testament. And so in chapters 8 and 9, what we have in Leviticus is the public kind of ordination or consecration of the Levitical priesthood or the Aaronic priesthood. All of the priests came out of the lineage of Aaron, and so they were descendants of Aaron. That's why it's called an Aaronic priesthood. And so we're stopped right in the middle of this as God is taking, and the launching of this priesthood is so important to the Lord, again as a picture of Christ. He wanted it to be a very public event. All of the children of Israel are called to come and witness this consecration. They have come. In chapter 8, sacrifices and offerings have already been made as a part of that consecration. And now in chapter 9, the Lord is ready to present them to the nation of Israel kind of complete. So the sacrifice has been offered. They've spent an additional 7 days in the tabernacle as a part of this waiting period before they would be kind of publicly launched, so to speak. And 7 being a number of completion in the Bible, 7 days constituting a week of God's creation, and then His day of rest, 7 colors in the rainbow, 7 notes in the scales. And also it represents completeness, and it represented these priests, their total consecration to the Lord, to His work. So that's what's happening. Chapter 9, verse 1. And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. So at the end of this 7-day period, and he said to Aaron, "Take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering and a ram as a burnt offering without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, Take a kid of the goats as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year without blemish, as a burnt offering, also a bull and a ram as peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, and a grain offering mixed with oil, for today the Lord will appear to you." God has given them a very long series of commands that they were to obey in this ordination of the priesthood. They have obeyed these things to a T. And so God is very pleased with what they're doing. Our obedience allows Him to bless us even more, give even greater revelation in our lives. And this is what is happening. So Moses declares this is all very, very good. God's going to do something special today in appearing to you. So they brought what Moses had commanded before the tabernacle of meeting, and all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. So they obey these commands. And then Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord commanded you to do, and the glory of the Lord will appear to you." And Moses said to Aaron, "Go to the altar, offer your sin offering and your burnt offering." Now a gigantic thing happens in verse 7, and it's certainly very easy to miss it. At this point, Moses has been offering all of the sacrifices. And at this point now, he turns all of that over now to Aaron and to his sons. So the sacrifices are now going to be officially start to be offered by Aaron. Now he tells Aaron the first offering that he's going to offer, and in his capacity as high priest, in his public capacity as a sin offering, it was a sacrifice of a bull. Now you think a little bit about Aaron's past. Remember, remember he was he's the golden calf guy, that kind of led the children of Israel into this whole idolatry and all. Now he's going to sacrifice a bull for his own sin, and maybe he looked back on that. Listen, chapter 9, this whole section is a picture of God's grace. I mean, the average person, and certainly the average God, if there was such a thing, would have been done with Aaron back at the golden calf thing. That's enough. Are there any more boys in this family? I can't turn anything over to that guy. I mean, you get the boss out of his sight, and he's got the whole nation dancing naked in front of the golden calves. What am I going to do with somebody like this? And yet, what does God do? He takes it. Aaron learns what he needed to learn from that experience, and God holds on to him, and God's calling on his life to become the high priest, first high priest in the nation of Israel. And it's all a picture of the fact that God really is a God of second chances and third and fourth chances. We don't use that as an excuse to sin, but we recognize that to be true of him. It is tremendous, and I think nobody more than Aaron realized, I can't believe that he's turning this over to me. I can't believe he is entrusting this to me in the light of my past and in the light of my very public past. And yet God did, and God does. He is a very, very gracious God. Perhaps there's an amen for that here tonight. Yes, he is, isn't he? We know for sure. So Moses said to Aaron, go to the altar, offer your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and for the people. Offer the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as the Lord commanded. Aaron went to the altar and killed the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. So again, this would be a repetition, a repeated offering that the high priest would make throughout history, a sin offering for himself. Always that recognition that he was, however, kind of elite his position was among God's people. He was just a sinner ministering to other sinners. So it was a way of keeping them humble and conscious of that fact. Not to condemn, but to keep our feet firmly planted on the rock, who is Christ. And then the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood, and he put it on the horns of the altar, and poured the blood at the base of the altar. But the fat, the kidneys, and the fatty lobe from the liver of the sin offering he burned on the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And the flesh and the hide he burned with fire outside the camp, and he killed the burnt offering, and Aaron's son presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled all around the altar. Then they presented the burnt offering to him with its pieces and head, and he burned them on the altar. He washed the entrails and the legs, and burned them with the burnt offering on the altar. Then he brought the people's offering, and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and killed it and offered it for sin, like the first one. And he brought the burnt offering and offered it according to the prescribed manner. Then he brought the grain offering, took a handful of it, burned it on the altar, besides the burnt offering of the morning. He also killed the bull and the ram as sacrifices, as peace offerings, which were for the people. And Aaron's sons presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled all around on the altar, and the fat from the bull and the ram, the fatty tail which covers the entrails, and the kidneys, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver. And they put the fat on the breasts, and he burned the fat on the altar. But the breasts and the right thigh Aaron waved as a wave offering before the Lord, as Moses had commanded. All of this we have seen in recent weeks with its imagery. And then Aaron, having done all of this, obeying God's word to a T, then Aaron lifted his hand toward the people. I mean, he's so excited. You can imagine. I mean, here it is, and he's being used by God, and he's pointing people to the Lord. And so he lifts up his hand toward the people, and he blessed them, and just pronounced God's blessing upon them. Came down from offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offerings. And then Moses and Aaron both went into the tabernacle of meeting, and they came out, and then together they pronounced a blessing upon the people. Must have just been fabulous. And the glory of the Lord appeared to all of the people. And here's how that glory appeared. And fire came out from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. This great fire. Don't know if we came from out of the Holy of Holies there in the tabernacle, or down from heaven itself, and it consumed. These sacrifices are being burned even at this time, being consumed, some portion of them still on the altar. God comes in and He makes quick work of it by just demonstrating His presence through this fire. Consumed it, the burnt offering, the fat on the altar, and as you might expect, when all the people saw it, they shouted, and then they fell on their faces. Now that's a way of saying that they worshiped the Lord. It wasn't. So you've got this beautiful, beautiful picture here in the people and their response. Wonderful combination of great joy. I mean, this didn't happen just every day. Here is God demonstrating His presence, demonstrating His favor in this way. This was a public kind of endorsement by God to all of the nation of Israel that He accepted Aaron as high priest. This whole Aaronic priesthood was something that pleased Him. He accepted His sons. He accepted all of this. So it was a very public way of demonstrating His favor upon all of this. They saw it, and it was just awesome. I mean, you just didn't see this every day, and they just fell down and worshiped the Lord. So beautiful combination of joy and holy awe. So we end here in chapter 9, and it's one of those God moments. I mean, just one of those things that, if you could put it in a bottle and make it happen every time God's people came together, you'd do it. And here is a situation where they have obeyed God to a T. God has favored to bless them in this way with His presence. And God is blessed by what's happening. The people are blessed by what's happening. It is terrific. It's just so sad that there's a chapter 10. Because there's two people that don't understand what's happening here, and they're going to mar things a little bit. And so we head now into chapter 10. And then, in the middle of all of this, Nadab and Abihu, and here we're told who they are, the sons of Aaron. They are two of Aaron's 4 sons, so they are priests. And each of them took his censer and put fire in it and put incense on it, and they offered profane. I think it's better in the old King James. They offered strange fire before the Lord, which the Lord had not commanded. So now here's this great thing. God is the center of attention, and God is pleased. The people are giving Him their full attention. They're blessed by it. And then Nadab and Abihu jump up and decide to do something on their own to take the attention of the people off of God and to put it on them. And so they spoil all of it. And it's interesting that God takes and He records